The council chamber is filled with unease, as the seats meant for humans remain empty, their absence louder than any protest, and the silence that hangs in the air weighs on every delegate present in the vast hall of polished stone and gleaming light. The chairs where human representatives once sat now look like hollow monuments to a fragile alliance that is already crumbling into dust. Every being in the chamber feels the same shift, though none dare admit it aloud. The humans are gone, and they have taken with them not only their voices but their presence, their perspective, their strange and restless energy that once shook the still waters of the council, the echoes of their arguments, the passion in their tone, the wild ambition that carried through their speeches. All of it is absent now, leaving the hall sterile like a body without a pulse. Some council members glance at one another with unease, their eyes flickering with questions they will not ask for fear of hearing the answers. Others sit rigid, hiding their fear behind expressions of indifference, yet every delegate feels the same cold knowledge settle into their bones. Something irreversible has happened, and no decree, no ruling, no gathering of voices will undo it. The humans have left without a single word, and that silence is more violent than any declaration of war. One by one thoughts race through the council minds of different shapes and species. A reptilian delegate wonders if the humans have fled in shame, or if they are plotting vengeance in silence. A crystalline envoy reflects on the fragile bonds woven over decades and how quickly they have unraveled like threads of glass snapping under strain. An insectoid diplomat recalls the final human speech, words filled with defiance and sorrow, yet offering no closure, no farewell, only the shadow of departure. The empty seats become symbols and accusations. They remind the council of every failure, every broken promise, every compromise made too late. They remind them of the moments when human voices were ignored, when their warnings were dismissed, when their pleas were buried beneath layers of procedure and arrogance. Now those seats remain like tombs, and the silence stretches until it feels endless, pressing against every wall, every beam of light in the chamber. A young delegate, new to the council, dares to ask what many are already thinking: why did they leave? Without a word, but the question hangs unanswered. No one wishes to speak what they suspect. No one wants to admit that the council itself is at fault, that trust was shattered not by accident, but by neglect and betrayal. The truth lurks unspoken in the silence, and the absence of humans becomes an unhealed wound. Pulsing with blame, the chamber grows heavier with every moment, as if the walls themselves mourn the departure, as if the universe has tilted into imbalance without the humans who once stood in those seats. And though no one admits it, every being present knows they have entered a new era, an era without humans and without the fragile hope they once brought. And the silence is not just the absence of words, it is the final statement of a species that chose to leave with no goodbye. Delegates whisper in disbelief, wondering how a species once so desperate to belong could vanish without farewell. The chamber filled with voices that do not rise above a murmur, as if even speaking too loudly would shatter what fragile order remains. The whispers flow like a current through the vast hall, each delegate passing unease to the next, and still the empty human seats glare at them like accusations carved in stone. A tall avian envoy leans toward a neighbor and mutters of betrayal. Wings shifting uneasily as though preparing for flight. The neighbor, an elder with eyes clouded by centuries of memory, replies that perhaps it was inevitable, perhaps humans were never meant to endure in the politics of stars. Their kind burned too bright, too quickly, and the flame has simply extinguished. But his words do nothing to calm the rising tide of dots across the hall. A crystalline figure shifts its facets, gleaming with fractured light, as it insists the humans have gone, not because they could not endure, but because they chose not to endure, because the council drove them away. The insectoid representatives click in sharp chorus, agreeing that the humans had been cornered, their voices drowned in the endless procedures and denials, and finally they walked out without even looking back. The whispers grow louder now, filling the chamber like a storm barely contained. Some claim humanity will return when anger has cooled. Others argue they are gone forever, leaving nothing but broken ties and bitter memory. One reptilian diplomat hisses that the humans are a danger, that silence is their weapon, and their absence a strategy they might strike without warning. They might be building something in the dark, and the thought chills even the bravest among them. The council chair strikes the floor to restore order, yet the sound echoes hollow and weak. The voices do not stop. Instead they multiply, because fear has already taken root. In the room the chair tries again to remind them of unity, of patience, of dignity, but the words crumble against the heavy air. No one believes in unity now, not when the humans left without even a fragment of goodbye. A younger delegate, barely grown, whispers to her mentor, asking why a people so full of words, so full of fire, would choose silence in their leaving. The mentor answers softly that silence speaks louder than speeches. It is the final judgment, it is the declaration that no compromise remains, and the words linger like a wound that will not close. Rumors spill into the air like smoke. Some say the humans left because they discovered a truth about the council that could not be forgiven. Others whisper that Earth itself called them home, that ancient protocols stirred and pulled them back across the stars, and a few darker voices suggest that the humans never intended peace at all, that their sudden departure is only the calm before devastation. As the arguments swirled, the delegates begin to realize that the absence of humans is not only a loss but a mirror showing the fractures within the council itself, divisions that can no longer be ignored. Silence has revealed more than words ever could, and in the emptiness of those abandoned seats, the council begins to understand that what is broken cannot be easily repaired. Memories surface of promises, broken of technology shared, then turned against allies of trust, shattered like brittle glass. The chamber becomes a place of recollection, and every delegate finds themselves dragged into the past, unwilling yet unable to resist the flood of remembrance. They recall how the humans arrived, first timid, then bold, eager to prove themselves and hungry to belong. They spoke of unity, of shared strength, of new beginnings, yet every promise carried a weight that the council was unprepared to bear. Reptilian elder recalls the time when humans offered energy technology born from the burning heart of their own world. It was a gift wrapped in goodwill, yet soon it became a weapon in border skirmishes, and the council never forgave the betrayal, though the humans insisted it was desperation, not malice. The memory lingers sharp as steel, a scar that will not fade. An avian delegate remembers the Great Accord, signed with trembling wings and steady human hands, the treaty that was meant to secure trade across 5 systems. The ink barely dry before the humans withdrew their fleets, claiming defense, yet breaking the fragile balance. Others depended upon the council chambers, erupted then, as they erupt now, in whispers of betrayal. The crystalline envoy recalls with sorrow the day when a human scientist stood before the assembly, her eyes alight with discovery. She promised a cure to a plague ravaging distant worlds. She spoke with conviction that life would be spared, yet, when the cure arrived, it came at a cost. Hidden clauses bound in contracts that left entire systems indebted. The council remembered not the cure but the chains. An insectoid representative recalls battles not fought with weapons but with words, the humans wielding language like blades, sharp, precise, cutting through the formality of council debate. They pushed and pulled until concessions were made yet rarely kept, and each broken word added another crack to the fragile glass of trust. The younger members who had not lived through those days listen in silence as their elders recount each failure, each disappointment. They see the pattern forming, humans promising much, delivering little, sometimes through malice, sometimes through desperation, but always leaving something broken behind. And now their absence feels like the culmination of every fracture pressed together into a final shattering. Yet within the memories there are sparks of what might have been, moments when human passion lifted the council from stagnation, moments when their reckless courage inspired action, when their stubborn hope carried fragile alliances through storms. There were times when their fire saved worlds, and those moments burn in the recollections just as brightly as the betrayals. But even those flames cannot hold against the growing darkness of absence. The chamber grows heavy with these shared memories, each delegate seeing not only the humans but themselves reflected in those failures. For it was not only humanity that broke promises. The council too failed in listening, failed in patience, failed in trust, and perhaps this silence, this absence, is the final judgment of all, not just of humans but of the entire galactic order. One counselor demands answers, another accuses. Silence is their weapon, and silence is their revenge. The chamber erupts, not with clarity but with chaos. Voices rising, overlapping, clashing like storms, colliding across endless seas. The council that once prided itself on order is now a theater of suspicion, and every delegate looks upon their neighbor with narrowed eyes. The reptilian commander slams a clawed hand against the table, demanding to know if any species aided the humans in their sudden departure. He accuses the avian faction of betrayal, suggesting secret deals were struck in the shadows. His words drip with venom, and the air trembles with the weight of his fury. The avian representative rises in outrage, feathers bristling as she declares no alliance was forged in secret, no bargains made. The humans acted alone, and none of them could have stopped to eat. Yet The accusations do not end, they ripple outward, gaining strength. A crystalline envoy insists the humans did not act alone. They could not have vanished so completely without allies, hidden routes, supplies, and safe havens, and when no one admits guilt, the envoy begins to see enemies in every face around the circle. The insectoid delegation clicks in agitation, warning that this spiral of suspicion will undo them faster than the humans' absence ever could, but their voices are drowned beneath the swelling tide of paranoia and fear across the chamber. A younger delegate dares to suggest that perhaps the silence is not only absence but strategy. Perhaps the humans mean for them to turn against each other, for if silence breeds suspicion, then suspicion will breed collapse, and humanity will have won without lifting a single weapon. Her words are met first with dismissal, then with unease as the idea settles like ash into every mind. The council chair rises heavy with age, his voice slow yet commanding. He reminds them that the humans were passionate but not subtle, that their nature was fire, not shadow. And yet even as he speaks, his conviction falters, for he too cannot shake the thought that perhaps silence is not emptiness, but a blade wielded with precision. As the chamber echoes with overlapping accusations, the memories of past betrayals twist. With fear of future strikes, one delegate suggests that humanity has retreated to prepare for war. Another insists they have withdrawn to punish the council by absence, by leaving them fractured and directionless. A third warns that silence is only the prelude to devastation. The air grows hotter with anger, colder with fear. The chamber itself seems to bend beneath the weight of so many voices rising with no harmony and no hope, each word sharpened by blame, each sentence heavy with dread. Council chair finally slams his staff upon the stone. The sound reverberates through the hall like thunder, silencing the uproar. For a moment he declares that the humans are gone, and their silence is both condemnation and warning. He declares that if the council tears itself apart now, then humanity will not need to lift a hand, for the work of destruction will already be complete. For a brief, instant silence returns, but it is no longer the silence of absence, it is the silence of suspicion, coiled tight, ready to strike, and every delegate knows in that moment that the humans have left them not only with emptiness, but with a weapon more dangerous than any fleet. A projection of Earth flickers before them, cracked like glass, showing oceans poisoned and skies burning. The image hovers in the center of the chamber, a reminder not of beauty but of ruin. The delegates watch in silence as the hologram shimmers, unstable light bending and breaking, as if the world itself resists being seen whole. The oceans, once vast and blue, ripple in sickly shades of green and gray. The seas churn with storms, endless and violent storms, born from the damage of centuries. The skies above the continents burn with scarlet haze, lightning flashing across clouds thick with ash. The projection twists again, and for a moment, the delegates glimpse cities, empty towers, broken highways crumbled like bones. The crystalline envoy leans forward, facets glimmering in fractured light, and whispers that Earth is not dying, it is already dead. Yet no one dares to answer because the image says it louder than any words. Could the reptilian commander growls that this is the legacy of humanity, a world consumed by its own hunger and ambition, a cradle that has become a grave, and he spits the words with disdain. But an avian delegate speaks softly in contrast, her voice like a feather drifting against the storm. She reminds the chamber that Earth was not only destruction, it was survival against endless odds, a planet where life clawed its way forward again and again, despite devastation. She argues that to call Earth dead is to deny the spirit of those who rose from its broken soil, the humans who once stood among them. The insectoid delegation clatters in restless agreement and adds that the image before them may be more than memory, it may be a message. They consider that perhaps the humans left this projection behind deliberately as a warning, or as a curse, to remind the council of what was done and what was ignored. The thought unsettles the chamber, because no one knows if the image is a simple archive or a deliberate act of judgment. The younger delegates, who have never seen Earth with their own eyes, watched the hologram with horror. They had heard stories of green forests and vast rivers and skies that stretched forever, yet the image they see is nothing like those tales. Instead, it is a shattered sphere, a warning written in storms and fire, and they wonder if the humans left because they could not bear the weight of showing such ruin to the galaxy any longer. As the hologram flickers again, splitting into shards of fractured light, the chamber feels smaller, heavier. Every delegate feels the unspoken truth settle within them. The damage shown is not only Earth's damage, it is their own. The council failed to guide humanity, failed to support them, failed to stop the descent into ruin. And now, They stare at the broken world as if it were a mirror reflecting all their failures. The silence grows unbearable. Some avert their eyes, others stare as if compelled, unable to look away. The projection cracks once more, light scattering into the air. Like shattered glass, before vanishing into nothing, the chamber is left in darkness, heavy and thick. And in that moment, every delegate understands that what they saw is not only the end of Earth, it is the beginning of something far worse. Panic spreads as reports arrive that human colonies have gone dark, leaving only abandoned ruins behind. The messages come in broken transmissions, scattered signals carried across the void, each one painting the same grim picture. Worlds once filled with human voices are now silent. Cities stand hollow, machinery rusts in the open air, and the stars themselves seem colder for the absence. The first report speaks of a mining colony on the edge of council space, once thriving with industry and trade. Now nothing more than empty corridors and machines still humming without masters. The investigators found meals left half-eaten, doors left open, as if the people had simply walked away without a word. The silence of that place is described as second report arrives from a world once covered in vast fields where human settlers farmed side by side with other species. When the scouts landed, they found the fields overgrown, the soil abandoned, the tools rusting in the rain. No signs of struggle, no marks of battle, just absence, as if humanity had been plucked away by unseen hands, leaving their lives suspended mid-breath. The third report is worse. It comes from a trade station at the intersection of three hyperlanes. The hub was always filled with human voices, laughter, deals, arguments, and now it drifts lifeless through the void. Lights flickering, systems failing, ships docked but empty. Cargo left untouched. It feels to the scouts like a tomb floating between the stars. The chamber fills with dread as each new message is read aloud. Some delegates insist it is impossible. No species could vanish so completely. Others whisper that this is proof of a plan too vast and careful to be coincidence. Humanity has not simply vanished. They have erased themselves, leaving no trace but emptiness. The reptilian commander hisses that this is strategy, not retreat. He argues that the humans are hiding their strength, that the unsilence of their colonies is a curtain behind which something greater is being prepared. Others echo his fear, warning that humanity may have withdrawn to consolidate power, to return one day with vengeance burning like fire across the stars. But the avian delegate shakes her head, her feathers dim with sorrow. She argues that what they see is not strategy but despair. She claims the humans have abandoned not only the council, but themselves, leaving behind their homes, their children, their future, because something within them broke beyond repair. The silence of their colonies is not a weapon, it is grief made manifest. The insectoid delegation debates fiercely, their voices clicking in sharp rhythm, some siding with fear, others with sorrow. The chamber itself seems to vibrate with their tension, and still the reports keep coming. Each colony silent, each station abandoned, each settlement nothing more than a shadow of what once was. By the time the final transmission is played, the chamber feels like a grave. The words crackle with static, the voice of a scout barely audible. He says there is nothing here, only ruins and silence, only silence, again and again, until the signal cuts, leaving the council in a void deeper than space itself. The council realizes humanity did not simply leave, they erased themselves from the galactic order. As if cutting a vein, the thought spreads through the chamber like fire, each delegate turning the idea over in their minds, but none daring to voice it fully at first. Then slowly the truth begins to take shape in their words. Humanity has not vanished in chaos, they have vanished with intent. The crystalline envoy speaks first, her voice cold and clear. She says no species disappears by accident, not entire colonies, not entire fleets. This is not retreat, this is erasure. They have removed themselves from every thread of the web, as if they wished to be forgotten. The council listens in uneasy silence, because her words feel like a blade of truth cutting through denial. The reptilian commander growls in anger, demanding to know why any people would choose such a path to erase themselves from history. He claims it is cowardice, weakness, and admission that they could not face their failures. Yet even as he says it, his eyes betray fear, because deep within he suspects the act is not weakness, but power. Power to refuse the council, to deny their judgment, to step beyond reach. The avian delegate spreads her wings in sorrow, and argues that erasure is not power but pain. She says the humans have chosen silence because they carried wounds too deep to heal, wounds that the council inflicted as much as humanity itself. She reminds them of broken treaties, ignored pleas, dismissals, that piled upon one another until there was nothing left but despair. The insectoid delegation clicks in debate, their voices sharp and layered, some insisting that erasure is a strategy too. Prepare for vengeance, others saying it is surrender, final, and absolute. The chamber fills with tension as their arguments rise like a storm, their many voices overlapping until they blur into a single thrum of unista. Younger delegates watch and listen, their faces pale as they realize the magnitude of what has happened. They were raised to believe in unity, in the permanence of the Council, in the unshakable bonds of the Galactic Order. Now they see those beliefs crumble before their eyes, shattered by the absence of a single species that had once been dismissed as fragile and reckless. As chair of the Council speaks at last, his voice slow with the weight of age. He says humanity has made a choice to sever themselves from us and from all we built together. He admits that such a choice is unprecedented, and perhaps irreversible. He warns that if the humans have erased themselves, then they have also erased the Council's illusion of permanence. Nothing can ever be the same. The chamber falls into a silence that feels alive, a silence that presses against every wall, every delegate, every thought. It is no longer the absence of human voices alone. It is the awareness that the humans have taken control of their story, that they have left the Council not with negotiation, not with war, but with nothing. And in that nothing, the Council sees the shadow of their own fragility. Fear grows when it becomes clear what was broken cannot be rebuilt, treaties cannot be reforged, and hope cannot be restored. The Council chamber feels colder than the void beyond its walls, as every delegate begins to understand that the humans have left a wound that will never close, and that wound runs through each of them as much as through the galaxy itself. The reptilian commander stares at the empty human seats, his claws curling against the polished stone. He remembers battles fought alongside human soldiers, reckless and wild yet unyielding, and he realizes with a heaviness that surprises him that without their fire the galaxy feels dimmer. He growls that they should have done more, yet the words sound hollow even to him, because what is gone beyond recall. The avian delegate lowers her wings, her feathers dull. She whispers that treaties are only paper when trust is ash. She recalls moments when human envoys begged for understanding, their voices shaking with passion and anger, but the Council dismissed them, each time choosing safety over risk and order over compassion. Now that refusal has flowered into silence, and the silence is permanent. The crystalline envoy speaks next, her voice sharp and bitter. She declares that the Council has always believed itself unbreakable, that its unity was a foundation no storm could topple, but the humans have shown them that unity was only illusion, that the bonds between them were threads stretched too thin. One pull, one break, and everything unravels. She says the humans did not simply leave, they revealed the truth that the Council was fragile all along. The insectoid delegation clicks and hisses in restless sorrow, their voices overlapping like grinding stones. They argue that even if the humans returned, nothing would be the same. No treaty could erase the memory of silence. No agreement could mend the weight of abandonment. The humans have made their choice, and the galaxy must now live with that choice forever. Younger delegates look upon their elders with unease. They had grown, believing in permanence, in the myth that nothing could fracture the Council. Yet now they see the cracks spreading through every voice, every argument. They see fear in the eyes of leaders they once thought unshakable, and they begin to wonder if they are witnessing the slow collapse of the order itself. The Council chair rises, leaning heavily on his staff, his voice trembling yet steady. He says, what is broken cannot be rebuilt. The silence of the humans is proof of that. He warns them that to cling to false hope will only deepen the wound they must face. Reality, he says, the humans are gone, and their absence is a judgment that cannot be appealed. The chamber falls, silent once more, but this silence is not absence alone. It is the sound of despair spreading through every heart. It is the recognition that the Council has entered a twilight from which there will be no dawn, and each delegate feels the weight of that truth pressing down like gravity, unyielding, unstoppable, final. The chamber falls quiet. The Council sits in the ruins of trust, knowing the humans are gone and nothing can ever be mended. The silence stretches across the vast hall like a living presence, heavier than steel and sharper than glass, and every delegate feels it pressing into their thoughts, reminding them of what has been lost and what will never return. The reptilian commander lowers his gaze, his anger drained into something colder. He remembers the fire of human warriors who once stood beside him, reckless and unpredictable, yet always steadfast in the fight. Now that fire is extinguished, and the void it leaves feels greater than any battlefield defeat. He realizes too late that what he despised in them was also what he needed: their refusal to bow, their endless defiance. The avian delegate folds her wings close, as though trying to shield herself from a storm, yet the storm is not outside, it is within, she recalls. Human songs echoing in the chambers, wild chaotic songs filled with hope and sorrow both at once, and she feels a hollow ache because she knows she will never hear them again. She whispers to herself that no goodbye was spoken, because no words could ever have been enough. The crystalline envoy shimmers dimly, her facets dulled by the weight of regret. She has always believed that truth was eternal, that history could never be erased, yet now she sees the lie in that belief, for the humans have erased themselves so thoroughly that only absence remains, and absence is more final than death. She wonders if one day their own kind will make the same choice to vanish, leaving only shadows behind. The insectoid delegation clicks in restless unease, their voices subdued. They admit at last that the council itself shares the blame for every broken treaty, every ignored plea, every dismissal that drove humanity further into isolation. The silence of the humans is their judgment, and it is absolute. They confess this truth not in anger but in resignation, for what is done cannot be undone. The younger delegates sit in stunned silence, their eyes wide. They have grown up in a galaxy where humanity was always present, loud, defiant, stubborn, sometimes reckless, but always there. Now they look at the empty seats and see a future without that presence, and it terrifies them, because the council feels smaller, weaker, less alive without those voices. The council chair speaks one final time, his voice heavy with grief. He says, no goodbye was spoken, because goodbyes are for partings that hope to meet again. But this silence is not a parting, it is an ending. He tells them to carry this truth in their memory, that what is broken cannot be mended, that the humans are gone, and that their absence will echo through every chamber, every star, every decision yet to come. The silence that follows is not broken, it does not fade, it lingers as if carved into the stone of the chamber itself, a silence that will outlast them all. The council does not rise, the council does not speak. They simply sit in the shadow of what humanity has left behind, and in that shadow they understand at last the weight of a goodbye never spoken.